Welcome to the ArmaniTalks show, episode 21. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. Within this show, we are covering a range of topics within communication skills, such as public speaking, social skills, emotional intelligence, content creation, and much more. Join the tribe by hitting that subscribe button and hit that bell notification if you're watching from YouTube. If you're watching from X, go ahead and retweet this episode as you are listening to it and you're resonating with a certain part within the episode. If you're listening from podcast, sit back and enjoy. Once you're done, make sure you leave me a review on your podcast provider of choice. In today's episode, we have a variety of unique topics that I want to break down, from navigating yourself in the workplace, to giving your speeches, to navigating your relationships, and much more. The very first thing that I want to get started off with is the value of science. Science is a very unique field because it's not a subject that you just understand once. It's more so a way of thinking. You start off very general. You see gaps in the world, and then you create an observation in regarding that gap. You think, I feel like the world should be this way, but it's this way. And each time that I'm trying to see and observe more, I keep noticing this gap that's sticking out. From this gap, that's when a hypothesis is born. If you think the world can function a certain way, or if you believe that you have an explanation regarding something, then that's when you get this hypothesis that you create. You test it out, you see whether or not it works, and if it works, then what you do is you adopt this hypothesis eventually as a rule. And if it does not work, you don't find data to back up your hypothesis. You discard the hypothesis. I try to treat ArmaniTalks as a very scientific venture. I'm not a big fan of dogma. I never try to say that this is the only way to do it and there's no way of changing it. My thing is, let me lead with my experiences. Let me see what I'm learning at this current stage of my life. And if new data presents itself, then new data presents itself, and I'm more than willing to change my mind. One thing that I've already changed my mind on is with TikTok. Before, I used to make a statement like, TikTok is the worst app on the planet. It's ruining a lot of people's mindsets. But actually, using TikTok changed my perspective. I realized that TikTok is a valuable application, especially if you learned how to use it properly. TikTok is a great resource if you're a homeowner, because there's so many different fixes that a homeowner can get from TikTok, and you're saving a lot of money. So TikTok is one of the applications that I have changed my mind on. Another thing that I have changed my mind on recently is whiny workers. Think about it. We've all worked with someone within our life that was a whiner. And for me, I used to get very annoyed by that. I thought, why even take up this job if you're going to spend half of it whining? You're annoying me. And I think this guy should have just quit. To this day, 2024, my mind is flipping with that. The reason it's flipping is because whiny workers serve a practical utility, especially within the workspace. What whiny workers do, especially for large-scale corporations, is that it keeps upper management in check. There was a period when I was working in this one company, and the guy that was training me was a great resource. He was super helpful, always answering questions, very enthusiastic. I had a great time interacting with him. Overall, the experience was great. Besides one thing. The one thing was that this guy was always trying to stay late at work. And he had this bad habit of asking me right before we're about to clock out, "Hey Armani, you remember the systems I was telling you about? Do you want me to just show you how it works real quick?" It's 4:55 p.m. I'm supposed to leave by 5 p.m. If I say yes, to his question, then I'm pretty much guaranteed to stay 1 hour longer. Now I'm annoyed. Thus far, the entire day, I've done a great job. But this idiot wants to ask me this socially unintelligent question in the last minute, which makes him think that I'm a slacker. Because I'm going to say, unfortunately, bro, I can't stay longer than 5 p.m. because I have other stuff to do. Every now and then, staying after 5 p.m. is fine, but I didn't want this to be a habit that this guy got used to. From the very beginning, I told him, look, I can't stay after 5 p.m. And he eventually stopped asking. It still annoyed me though, thinking, don't you have a life outside of work? Why do you always stay in the company for so long? As more time went on by, what happened was this company eventually installed mandatory Saturday overtime. You had to show up. And my trainer, let's just call him Matthew, he was super giddy. He thought, okay, well, more overtime hours for me. But there was a lady named Louise. Louise was the whiny coworker. She would whine to anyone that would listen. And she did not like that the management forced the workers to come in on Saturday. It's one thing if it's voluntary, but forced, that's messed up. So she would whine to anyone that would listen. And eventually, one day, Louise and Matthew, they were in the same room. Matthew was throwing these subtle shots like, well, I actually like to work. I don't mind working overtime. If you don't like it, you could quit. He was throwing these shots. Louise heard it loud and clear. And eventually, she asked Matthew a string of questions that I remember to this day. She asked Matthew, do you have grandkids? Matthew said, no. Do you have kids? Matthew said, no. Do you even have a wife? Matthew said, no. And Louise, she said, I have grandkids, I have kids, and I have a husband. See, Matthew, I can't dedicate my entire life to work like you can. And I give you respect for that. But you got to understand, us other workers, we have lives outside of work too. And that's when my perspective with work and whiny workers was starting to flip. I realized that people like Luis were needed within large-scale corporations, because if there were no Luises, what happens is guys like Matthew, they have no problem just living at work. And upper management loves this. Upper management says, wait a minute, I mean, there's guys like Matthew here. They always want to work. Well, we could get more output out of our teams then. Why don't we do this? Why don't we tell them to bring their pajamas to work? They could just sleep at work, right? They never have to leave. If you have a large-scale corporation and you only have ambitious employees, eventually these employees, they're never going to have a life outside of work. So people like Luis, the whiny workers, they keep the management in check. They're saying, no, we still have lives outside of work. Don't get that twisted. Eventually, Luis's whining, it paid off, because time went on by and more people thought about it. They said, yeah, I mean, what's up with that? Why are we having to work so much? I mean, Saturday mandatory for how long? And eventually, Luis sparked a grassroots movement, and many of the workers started to bring this up more to upper management. Therefore, after being presented new data, I realized that the bigger the corporation, the more that whiny workers are needed. You don't want a floodgates of whiny workers, but every now and then having a Luis, what it does is it keeps upper management in check, and it's good for all the employees in the long run. It's the same thing with living in a community. I recall there was one of my close friends who was telling me that his community was perfect. For the longest time, everyone knew each other. And one day, there was this new group of people that moved into one of the townhomes. It was strange because the group of people that moved in, it wasn't a family. like most of the other people within this community, it wasn't a mom, dad, and 2 kids. It was just a bunch of random dudes staying in one place. And ever since they moved there, bad stuff started to happen. The trash cans were always filled up a ton. Where before it was filled up, but it wasn't filled up a ton. It seems like these guys were disposing of things a lot for whatever reason. Packages started to disappear, and they played loud music. Now, if everyone in the community is Mr. Polite, that's not good. This is when you need a Karen. And there was a Karen within the neighborhood who would whine to anyone that would listen. And at this stage, this Karen, she was seen as higher status because she was the only one who was voicing the neighborhood's opinions regarding this new group of gentlemen that moved in within this community. Bad people are only bad people when we weigh in the context. Bad people can easily turn into good people if we change up the context. This is why I think whiny workers are needed. And it took me a while to accept this. I'm not ever going to be a whiny worker myself. Whenever I'm hired for a job, I bring in the utmost enthusiasm. But if I'm working a job nowadays and the guy to my left is whining a lot, rather than be disgusted by him, I am appreciative of his role within the entire organization. And I believe you should be as well, because without this whiny worker, you would be forced to work overtime and you have no say in the matter. And speaking of overtime, this is something to understand if you are upper management. You should always give people the opportunity to work overtime if your company has the funds for it, but you should never force people to work overtime. And you will be shocked by how many companies don't understand this simple mindset, because a lot of companies, what they do is they are introducing these forced Saturday overtime rules, and people will easily turn on you then. Whenever you're evaluating whether or not a worker is a quality worker, you just want to evaluate them from the hours that you have allotted them. You don't want to evaluate them from extra hours. So for example, with this gentleman that I was talking about earlier, where my shift was from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., he should be evaluating me from that lens. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Am I working above the norm? If I am, then I'm a super great worker. But if he's asking me last minute at 4:55 p.m. if I want to stay an hour longer and I say no, his perception of me should not sour then, thinking, oh man, this guy doesn't want to put in overtime. He doesn't want to go the extra mile. That's a very unreasonable request, especially nowadays. Gen Z and this new generation, they don't really care that much about money as you would imagine. What they care about more is their free time and what they can do with their friends and family after work. It's hard to manage Gen Z because Gen Z, these guys are not willing to put in the extra mile for corporations and companies. And you as a manager, you may have a fair question to ask. How do I manage these people? The way that you manage Gen Z people is by giving them clear roles and always allowing them to expand if they want to. When they start off, one thing that a lot of companies have is a very poor onboarding process where it's a person's first ever day within this company, and the manager is completely as lost as the new employee. The manager's like, oh, you're my new worker? And the new employee, you have to understand their perspective. A new employee has the same perspective as a student who's about to start a new year in school. Thus far, they had the summer for the 3 months, and the next day they're about to start 7th grade. Their mind is flooded with thoughts of, I wonder what 7th grade is going to be like. You know what I'm talking about? You can't even sleep. You're just waiting for the alarm to go off. That's what a new employee is like. So they're expecting once they come into the company, they are going to be greeted with clarity. They're expecting their manager is going to be introducing themselves. They're going to say, hey, how's it going? Welcome aboard. Here are the packets that you need. Here's your ID. You will be sitting here. This is your team. You'll be doing X, Y, and Z work. For the next couple of days, you'll be following me around. They're expecting that sort of clarity. But what a lot of these new workers get nowadays is a clueless manager who's like, well, no one told me that you're under my team. All right, whatever. Just pick up a box and just set up anywhere. New workers like, what the heck? This happened in one of my companies, a Fortune 500 company. My first day, the manager had no clue that I was getting hired. I'm basically just following him around. He's talking to other people. I'm just standing there like a dummy. He's not introducing me to anyone. And eventually he's like, just set up somewhere, which is a very general command when you're in somewhere new. I don't know where to set up. I mean, where do I get the cables from? Where do I get the seat from? If I set up here and I commit 35 minutes to setting up, is someone going to say, hey, no, Jim sits there? I mean, give me some clarity, dude. And for the first week, this guy would barely talk to me. And different people would come ask me, hey, are you new? Wait, who do you work for? I tell them, and he's like, oh man, that guy, he's busy, super busy. I didn't like that. I found that super irritating. And this is when every now and then there's this one worker who sees how lost you are and they take you under their wing. For me, it was this lady named Melissa, who I will get to shortly. Gen Z, they don't like that sort of confusion. No one likes that sort of confusion, but Gen Z, they take it more personal. They think, oh, okay, you don't view me as important to have a solid onboarding process for me. I'll remember this. So you as the manager of Gen Z, of anyone actually, make sure you have a clear onboarding process. Hey, this is your team. This is where you're going to be sitting, and this is what you're going to be doing. These 3 steps will already put you ahead of a lot of other managers. Now, from there, it's all about giving a clear role of what this guy is supposed to be doing. People, they don't just like to do work and that's it. They like work with context. So if you tell them, look, you're doing these charts, okay? Do these charts. Let me know if you have any questions. Within 3 days of them knowing the charts, they don't have any questions. You see a bored look on their face. That's when you say, follow me. Today, I'm going to teach you what these charts are for. I just wanted you to get some practical experience doing these charts. Now I want to explain what the business is like and how your charts plug into the entire business. You're giving them context. Now they are appreciating the work they are doing more. Rather than thinking in individual nodes, they're beginning to think in links. They understand how what they're doing is connected to the person that they're sitting next to. Rather than viewing the people that they're sitting next to as this foreign entity, now they see this invisible connection. Now from there, what you want to do once you see this employee easily figuring out the charts is that you want to understand that human beings get bored easily. Okay? They get bored. So you don't just want this person to have this one role and that is all. Slowly, you want to ask, do you want to do more? Let me know whenever you're ready for more and I have more work lined up. And at this stage, a lot of the Gen Z people, they're just like, I just got hired for this role. That's all I want to do. Other people will say, sign me up. And that's when you want to compartmentalize between the 2 groups. One group, they just want to treat work like work. Let them have their moment. Okay? And the other group, they want to treat work like a career and they want to build up and have work for them. The problem that a lot of these managers have is that they try to confuse the 2 groups, where the very ambitious people, they have no extra work for them. And the people that aren't that ambitious with their career, they're trying to beat a dead horse. They're like, oh, come on, why aren't you more ambitious? Come on. Just a big waste of time. So compartmentalize correctly. I believe to lead Gen Z, I'll just give you a summary of what I said. You need to be able to have a clear onboarding process. give them work with context, and then you want to compartmentalize correctly. Is this a Gen Z worker that just wants to work? Then just give them the work within the role that they were hired for and call it a day. Is this a Gen Z worker that is ambitious and wants to rise up? Then always have extra work prepared for them and just keep giving them work until they say stop. This is how you manage Gen Z people, and you have to learn how to manage them. There's no, oh, I'm not going to hire Gen Z. Because despite them coming with a lot of baggage, they also come with a lot of upside. One of the upsides that they come with is that they are technologically savvy. If your workers are technologically savvy, you have unlimited leverage because they will save you hours and hours worth of time. Not only that, you can't help but manage Gen Z people because those are the new people that are entering the marketplace. All people, management-wise, it comes with the good and comes with the bad. The good is that it brings you joy, but the bad parts bring you so much heartache. That's why people become full-time managers. Management roles are rarely part-time. And management roles, it's draining. There was a guy within my last company who's finally given a management role. He started to make 6 figures, and after making that coveted 6 figures, he's like, man, I hate this dude. And he demoted himself back to an associate worker. Whenever people asked him, well, why did you ask for a demotion? And he would always say, machines don't argue back, but people do. People argue back. And if you don't want a management role, I don't blame you. There are so many different paths to make 6 figures nowadays. The 6 figures thing, though, it's somewhat of an illusion. I believe nowadays making $100,000 a year is it's like making $80,000 a year in 2024. Where before, if you made in 2014, if you made $100,000 a year, you were pretty much set. In Florida, if you're making $100,000 a year, you're keeping roughly $5,800 per month, which isn't bad. In 2014, you could buy a lot with $5,800 per month. Your mortgage wasn't that high, food wasn't that expensive, gas wasn't that expensive. You're good to go. In this era, making $5,800 a month, it's not that high, and it makes you worry. I know a lot of people that make 6 figures that they don't feel like they're making any sort of money. Thinking, dude, I'm always stressed out. Now I need to work up to 150K. And what'll happen? If I make 150K a year, it feels like the world, it's changed so much that it doesn't even feel like I'm making 150K. 150K is the new 100K. That's why I say that you always need to be leveling up within your career. It's hard to give blanket advice with career because different people are doing different things. If you have no side hustle and you just have a career, then focus all in on the business that you are in. Now, if you have a side business, then you're pretty much treating your job sort of like this vehicle that will fund your side business until your side business makes a lot of money and you could quit your 9-to-5 job and you could focus wholeheartedly on your side hustle. There are different career paths. Therefore, it's difficult to give career advice. I just believe that you do need some sort of side hustle if you're not satisfied with your career because things are just getting way more expensive. And whenever things are getting expensive, you need to be able to adjust on the fly. There is no work, in my opinion, that is you should have too much ego for, especially when you're struggling with money. One of the guys that, for example, designs my book covers, he's this award-winning artist in Morocco. He's a very prestigious guy within his field, and he does book covers. I mean, book covers, I wouldn't say are the most prestigious work, yet he knows that he has a solid stream of income coming in from the ArmaniTalks brand. Therefore, he works on it. He's not too big, right? He's not too proud. Pride will ruin a lot of great opportunities for you. And pride is something that you always want to be wary of. Even the most humble people out of the blue moon will have pride coming out of the woodworks, and it's important to check that. This is why whenever, for example, Jordan Peterson, he talks about marriages. He talks about how a wife and a husband, they're supposed to keep each other in check, because from his perspective, he believes if you're a single person for too long, you're not as checked. When you're not checked, you're flying all over the rails. Where when you're married, you're capable of having this strategic pushback that keeps you in line. It's like if you're this rock that's just moving down, right? If you're moving down without any pushback, you're just moving all over the place. While if you get some pushback, there's more direction to you. And that's how he breaks down marriage. I somewhat agree with that. But I think when you get married is also a big thing, where I believe in this era, if you're one of these guys that's getting married at age 21 to 22, I think that's actually worse than you getting married a little bit later in your life. Not too late, not these guys that get married in their 50s, but I think if you get married in your late 20s to mid 30s, that's way better than getting married in your early 20s. Because when you get married too early on, you have this level of immaturity where to be in a relationship, you need a little bit more maturity, and to have a kid in the future, you need more maturity as well. Where I've seen a lot of people, they accidentally have kids, and then they're very immature. They like leave their kids in the car when they go out to do groceries, and then the kid is burning in the car, and they're like, oh, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. It's because a kid is raising a kid. That's why I believe once you're in your late 20s to mid 30s, as a guy at least, then it's smart to start looking. It's smart to start looking if that's what you even want. A lot of people are just opting out of the marriage dynamic completely. I don't necessarily know much about that, where, you know, there are a lot of these divorce horror stories. I don't fill my mind too much with that, even though I get the practical utility of knowing about things like this. I try not to fill my mind too much with that. I view marriage and business in the same way, where I believe with business, tons of people fail, but every now and then, few people succeed. And I think way more about the people who succeed versus the people who fail, because I just don't like to consume my mind with too much negativity. And it's the same thing with marriages, where yes, a lot of people fail, but every now and then a few people succeed. And I want to be the few people who succeed, because that is what eventually leads to, kids, grandkids, a legacy, that sort of stuff. So that's what I fill my mind with. It is tricky to learn in the real world. I actually break this down in my book, The Modern Day Polymath, currently out in stores. You could get it on Amazon, Audible, Gumroad. And I talk about the difficulty of navigating the internet, because you're going to get so much content where in the modern era, media literacy is one of the most important topics to learn. If you don't have media literacy, then you will think all content is good content. Have you ever had that one moment where you're consuming content for a while? You're thinking, this content is amazing. This creator is amazing. And you spend a good amount of time within this rabbit hole. That eventually your awareness within this field rises. And the same creator that you once respected, nowadays you think, how could I possibly respect a guy like this? This guy was a well-known scammer this whole time. And you're questioning your judgment. You're thinking, how did I let a well-known scammer influence my mind for so long? It happens. That's why I introduced the funnels and flywheels technique within the modern day polymath, where at first you want to start off your education process like a funnel. A funnel starts wide and it goes narrow, whenever you're curious about a topic, you want to start wide. You want to get any content regarding this as you possibly can. Meditation, for example. Any content with meditation, yoga, spirituality, boom, you're consuming everything. Soon, you're getting repeat phrases. That's what you want to look out for, especially when you're learning. When you keep hearing these phrases from different sources. When you hear repeat phrases from different sources, these are what I call fundamental concepts. You want to learn more about these repeat phrases. You want to understand the definitions. And the more that you're learning about this, the more that you're going narrow, narrow, narrow. And eventually there's one topic within this field that's entertaining you a lot. And this topic is taking you to a brand new topic. Let's stick with meditation. Let's say initially you thought meditation was all about making yourself less anxious and being calmer. That's what you really thought. That you thought that was the purpose of meditation. You're at the bottom of the funnel. Suddenly, you see that that is not the purpose of meditation. Meditation, the purpose of it is to calm your mind so you can connect to your divine source. What the heck? You weren't expecting that. And this introduces you to another funnel. Okay? And once you get the output from the previous funnel and you take that as an input to a new funnel and you start off general to narrow again, that is what we call a flywheel. Flywheel is when you get the output from one system and plug it in as an input for another system, creating momentum. So you started off on meditation wide, you went narrow to realizing that the purpose of meditation is not just to calm yourself, but it is to connect to your divine spiritual self. And this leads you to a new funnel. You have all the understanding from your previous funnel as you're entering this new funnel. You're building momentum, and now you're going down the new funnel again. This is how you learn. And this is why you want to be somewhat empathetic with yourself when you do realize that you are initially learning from a well-known scammer. Because the light is that this well-known scammer at least got you to enter a funnel. And as you entered the funnel, you were able to clarify your understanding, learn more phrases due to this well-known scammer. And who knows, maybe in the future you see that this guy is not a well-known scammer. It's just this, let's say you're in the fifth funnel by now. Within the fifth funnel, all these different sources that you're discovering is dissing the guy who introduced you to the first funnel. You're thinking, oh man, this guy is a scammer. Then by the time you're continuing your education, you're in the 35th funnel by now. You realize that he was not a scammer. He was actually well ahead of his time. And the people that were insulting him were just too small-minded. That's why with learning, you always want to have this open-minded, skeptical attitude. You want to be open-minded where you're always willing to take in new information. Even if something sounds ridiculous, you're more than willing to listen to it. But then you want to be skeptical too. You don't want to say, oh, because you said it, I have to immediately believe it. Or because this was your experience, it's going to be my experience too. You want to be skeptical because you have a thing called the intellect. And by utilizing the intellect correctly, you're capable of getting all that information that you gathered in the open-minded stage and filtering through it effectively. Another concept that I bring up in the modern-day polymath is the importance of leading with your personality. Because if you're leading with something vague like, I just want to learn more, what happens is you get pulled in so many different directions. You never know if someone else's priority matches your priority, and you're just all over the place. The only person that you know, truly know, when you're entering the internet is yourself. Hopefully. In the beginning, you don't really know yourself. You think you do. You think you have an understanding of who you are, but you don't. That's why I recommend you just start with where you are. What do you want to know? When I was truly starting my self-education journey, I wanted to learn more about storytelling. At that stage, I had just gotten my master's and I was thinking, what's next? A lot of people, they think once they get their degrees, their education has ended. Where for me, there was this burning desire to learn more about storytelling. What exactly is it? Everyone would always give me these fuzzy definitions of a story, and it was never satisfying to me. And through that state of dissatisfaction, I was capable of forcing myself to research more. I began a funnel. I started off wide and just kept going narrow and entering a new funnel. And I just did this for years. There's going to be this burning desire, and you just want to see where you go when you have a lot of free time. When you have a lot of free time, you will see that, okay, these topics I'm naturally curious about. And when you're curious about it, just explore that curiosity. The more that you explore that curiosity, the more that you will be introduced to new curiosities. As I started off researching storytelling, understanding what it was about, slowly I started to get more into psychology. I started to understand concepts like the Michelangelo phenomena. I started to understand concepts like the gaslight effect. Huh? What's that? What's the subconscious mind? What's the conscious mind? What's the difference between subconscious and conscious? I was filling my mind with all this different information. And at first, I thought I was trying to learn about the world. But what I was really doing was I was trying to learn about the world so I could learn more about myself. And the more that I was learning more about myself, that's when I became more curious about the world. And it was this ongoing dance. This is why you should feel grateful that you live in this generation, because this is the generation where we can actually participate with the internet. Us 90s babies, we know something. We remember dial-up internet. We remember during dial-up internet, you could not interact with the internet. Whatever the internet showed you is what it showed you. We used to mainly consume from the internet until Web 2.0 was released. And that's when you could actually participate with the internet. You could click on buttons. You could modify certain texts. You could use tools like Canva. So we live in that era now where we could actually interact with the internet. So be grateful for the time period that we live in, because whatever you want to do, whatever you want to learn, you can learn it. And there are these artificial intelligence tools that are being introduced by the daily. And while a lot of people are fearful of it, I'm excited by it. Because here's how I think of it. I think the more that these technological groups progress, the better it is for the ArmaniTalks brand. I was thinking about it. In 2018, I started ArmaniTalks. There were so many things that I had to do manually. There were so many things I had to spend so much money for with contractors. And a lot of these tasks nowadays are automated. One example is, for a while, I used to get my YouTube videos and I used to watch it, and then I used to see which parts were the most entertaining. I used to chop the video into little pieces. Then I would add subtitles to it. Then I would export it. Then I would upload it. And the entire process took 40 minutes to an hour. Sometimes it took less. Sometimes it took 25 minutes. If it's over 10 minutes, to me, it felt like a lot of work. It was a drag. I hated doing it. Eventually, I got a contractor to do it. I asked the contractor how much for each short. He said $20 per short. $20? Man, with that much money, I could only post one short per week, which isn't that good. But I paid him anyways, and I thought he did sloppy work. I thought he could have done it a little bit better, but he was doing it. Now I didn't have to do it anymore. I could focus on other parts of the business. More time goes on by, and eventually there's a tool called Get Munch. There's another tool called Opus Clips, where you just plug in your YouTube link and they will chop the videos for you, get the most entertaining parts, and put the subtitles in there for you. And then you could publish it straight from that app. I don't have to do all this extra work. Thinking, wow, Technology really saved my life with this. Another one is with proofreading. I tried to proofread my work for the longest time. All my books, I proofread them myself. And I'm thinking after each one, I'm like, man, I got everything. I read this over 3 times. Trust me, there's no mistake there. Every now and then people hit me up and they're like, yo, bro, I love your content. Just a heads up. Did you mean to write this in this sentence or did you mean to write this word instead? Like, what the heck? How is there such an obvious mistake after I read the manuscript 3 to 5 times? And that's when I learned that if you're proofreading your own work, it is always going to come to a moment where you miss a couple of words. It's just human error that you have to factor in. That's why whenever you're getting a proofreading service, the way that these people negotiate with you is the first time I'll charge you X amount of money, and the second time I'll charge you X amount of money. And you're thinking, well, why am I going to pay you twice? I'm paying you to proofread, so you better do it right the first time. These proofreaders factor in human error. So if you're trying to proofread, let's say, a book the size of, I don't know if you can see Speakeasy. Boom, Speakeasy. It's like a book that's this thick. If you're trying to get that proofread, be prepared to spend $1,200 for the first reading and maybe another $800 for the second reading. So that's $2,000 just getting your book proofread. And you still don't know if this guy got everything. Introduce ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a lifesaver with proofreading because once I get the rough draft nowadays, all I do is I plug it into ChatGPT. I'm like, proofread this. And it fixes up any misspellings that I've had. I could read it over and over and I still don't see any spelling errors. So much time has been saved. I was actually thinking in the future, as ArmaniTalks grows more, that I was going to hire a full-time proofreader for the brand, and I was willing to pay him $70,000 per year. That's like a decent entry-level job. But with ChatGPT and these different technological tools, I don't have to do that anymore. I have a personal proofreader that I know for a fact will get everything. Hopefully. I mean, people always say that there's new bugs that they're discovering with ChatGPT, but it's good enough for me. So I love the way that technology is evolving at such a rapid rate. And within 6 years since I started ArmaniTalks, there have been tons of technology that has been introduced that fascinates me. I'm thinking, okay, can I plug this into my business? I can. I can plug that in too. That too. This one's not needed. And you also have to have that mentality of, this one's not needed. Because if you have no idea what the core essence of your business is about, you're going to just adopt any technology that gets into your radar. This actually happened before with the ArmaniTalks brand, where there was this tool called Videos. And the marketing was brilliant for it. It's like you could create all these animations, right? And they're showing me the animations you could create. Immediately, I'm thinking, this is going to be amazing for my YouTube channel. The intro and the outro, I could use the videos titles. They're like, only a one-time payment of $90. Thinking, wait, so it's not a subscription model? Just a one-time payment? Where do I sign up? Right before I'm about to pay, I just do some research just to make sure that this product is legit. And different people are saying, the product is legit. The only problem is that once you buy it, you won't have that much use for it. You'll probably use it once or twice, but after that, you're not going to use it that much, and it's going to be collecting dust. I thought, these guys are just whining. These guys probably aren't using their imagination. So I buy the product anyways. Once I buy the product, I see that these criticisms were valid. I mean, there's only so much animation that you can do, especially if you're not an animation company. And that's when I saw that Videos was collecting dust. And I saw that just because new technology is being introduced does not mean that I have to adopt all the new technologies. I try to adopt the technologies that I could see being implemented into my day-to-day activities. So one example is Opus Clips. I post a short every day. So every single day, I'll use a tool like Opus Clips. where they get the video and then they chop it into parts, they add the subtitles, and I could just post it. This is a technology I could see myself adopting. ChatGPT, I could easily see myself adopting because I write a blog every day and I need proofreading done every day. Boom, ChatGPT does that for free. Videos, it's an animation tool. I don't really, I'm not that much into animation. ArmaniTalks is an ideas business. The main bread and butter is ideas that we're distributing that deals with communication skills. And we're distributing it in different packages, whether it's video, kind of like you're watching. If you're listening, then it's audio. If you're reading, it's a book format. The central concept are the ideas that is just being packaged in different ways. I always have to remind myself of that. ArmaniTalks is an ideas business first. And when I have that clarity, and I just keep repeating that multiple times, it becomes ingrained in my subconscious mind. And that's when I see this technology is needed, this technology is a complete waste of time. It is. And once you hit 10,000 followers on any platform, your DMs are going to be flooded with services and technology that you should be adopting. And if you have no idea what the central theme of your business is, then you're just going to be having these business calls and marketing pitches in your ear left and right. It's sad whenever a friend is trying to sell me on something. It's happened way too many times, and I do think that it's a respectable hustle. These guys are doing their best, trying to make money. The second that they try to sell me on something, though, I see that look in their eyes. They no longer see me as a friend. They see me as a potential lead that they're trying to sell, and they won't take no for an answer. Anytime I try to talk to them, I could tell a pitch is coming. I have this good sensitivity when I sense ulterior motives in people. I'm talking. Anyways, bro, did you ever think about doing X, Y, and Z for ArmaniTalks? I'm like, you're my friend. And now I'm this potential dollar sign to you. I think friends should be... I'm actually not a big fan of friends doing business with one another. I think you should not be doing business with your friends. And it's wise to avoid ever trying to sell your friends on things. I always hear this quote, friends don't ask friends for discounts. My thing is, I'm not trying to sell to my friends, number one. If I do, it's probably when I'm just starting off, right? But you should never have that mantra of, well, my friends and my family better support me, because these are the worst customers and clients to have because they know you too well. Whenever you're doing business with someone, I think business and boundaries go hand in hand. So you want to create these hard line boundaries with them. And if you're hypothetically a public speaking coach and your cousin is your client, your cousin, he could easily say 5 different excuses where he doesn't have to pay you. And all of these excuses are somewhat justified. We're like, hey man, I know I owe you this much amount of money, but remember a long time ago when your dad needed money and my dad gave him the money and he never asked for that money back? See, that's what us family members, we do for one another. And this is you in some ways repaying that kind deed that my dad did for your dad back to me. You could make this argument that this is a good case. Oh, okay, whatever. I guess you don't have to pay me. You don't want to be stuck in that boat. That's why avoid doing business with family members and avoid asking your family members or your friends to hear your marketing pitches. Because more often than not, they're going to be polite. They're going to say, sure, I'll listen to you. In the back of their mind, they're just thinking, all right, bro, wrap it up. I really don't want this service. Don't try to sell them more than once or twice on it. Don't try to sell them at all on it, by the way. But if you are going to try to sell them because you desperately think they need the product, for example, with insurance, sometimes people are paying so much more for their insurance, and there's a insurance salesman within the family that could get a way better deal. If you're that insurance salesman and you think you could get the way better deal, try to sell them once, twice, max. then you're done, buddy. They don't want it. They don't want it. Wait for them to approach you. Because when you try to view your family and your friends as dollar symbols, it always ends bad. It adds resentment to the other person. This is one of the reasons why I will say, don't tell people how much money that you make. You're always going to be tempted when you make a lot of money. I think it's just a risky thing to do because eventually people are going to view you as dollar signs. I've been guilty of this. I've had moments where my friends were making over $20,000 a month, and the first thing I thought of was, how is that going to impact me? I did. I thought, okay, well, if I ever have this kooky business idea, this guy's going to be the one that gives me the initial money to get started, because what's $10,000 to him? Yes, $20,000. What's $5,000 to him? You better give me something. You better give me $1,000 at least. Otherwise, he's not my friend. And this guy, I don't know his story. He may have a business where he makes $20,000, but he doesn't keep $20,000. And that's not for me to know. That's only for him to know. That's why it's just risky telling people how much money that you make, because it always sparks some sort of entitlement in them. Don't tell people how much money that you make. I'm 32. I'm about to turn 33 next month. And I've seen that maintaining friends in your 30s is way different than maintaining friends in your 20s, where in your 20s, there's more room to mess up and you're still capable of being friends with someone. I recall when I was in the College of Engineering, there were so many times where I would have like blowouts with people during my study sessions. And then the next day, we're giving each other the silent treatment. These guys are my friends, by the way. And a couple of days later, we're just back to being normal. There was no apology or anything in the mix. It just, after the initial tension, it just boom, 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 wears off. And we're defaulting back into it being normal. Where in your 30s, if you have one of these heated arguments and stuff, it doesn't just default into it being back to normal. It actually defaults into being more awkward until someone steps up and does something about it. And if no one steps up and does something about it, then the friendship will just end. For example, in College of Engineering, one time I was asking one of my really smart friends some questions, and he kept asking, bro, you don't even know that? Come on, bro, you don't even know that? And after the 5th time of him saying that to me, I yelled at him. And I yelled at him where there were a bunch of people they heard, and this guy, let's just call him Tom, he got really mad at me for the next day, 2 days, 3 days. And by the 4th, 5th day, we're in the same vicinity so many times that we're just going back to it being normal and everything is good. Now, if something like that happened nowadays, we don't have that luxury of always being in the same vicinity, where we were forced to do that in College of Engineering because we're always studying together. But in the real world, after we yell or one person yells, then I go back to my physical location, he goes back to his physical location, and that is the last thought that we have of one another. So if that's the last thought is rather negative. And if I'm saying, well, he shouldn't have been constantly just asking me if I know the answer to this or not, that's why I yelled at him. And he's thinking, well, he shouldn't have yelled at me at all. That's not the mature thing to do. We're just defaulting into us never talking again. And unless someone takes that role and says, look, we need to make sure that the friendship is intact. We got in an argument, but everything is good. This is not going to last forever. Then you're just going to default into negativity. And so in your 30s, you will see that miscommunications happen, and miscommunications can go from small snowballs into avalanches. And you need to stop it while it's in the snowball stage, where if I were to yell at someone in my 30s, you better believe that I'm apologizing either that day or within that week. I'm not waiting for it to go up to the 2-week, 3-week mark. I'm not waiting for him to apologize to me. If I genuinely think I did something wrong, I will go ahead and apologize to them. And whenever people are trying to apologize to you, you don't want to be one of these guys that's making it super awkward and you're just dragging it on. Because if you're dragging it on, this guy, here's the thing, this guy, they may not even think that they're sorry. So back to the Tom example where I yelled at him for him constantly asking me, you don't even know the answer to this? Let's say I'm apologizing to him, but in the back of my mind, I'm not really that sorry. I actually feel as though it was warranted because he was trying to disrespect me by insulting my intelligence. That's why I yelled at him. I felt as though that was just the only way to check him. I'm not really sorry, yet I'm apologizing just for the sake of the friendship. If Tom is dragging it on, he's like, well, you hurt my feelings in this way and this way and this way. Initially, I'll say, yep, I'm really sorry for that. That was messed up on my end. You have every right to feel that. I'm going to give him some grace period of 1 to 1 week maybe of just being really furious at me. But if he says, look, water under the bridge, I forgive you, and he keeps bringing it up in the future, I'm going to think twice before apologizing to him, because the previous time, I apologized for the sake of the friendship. I wasn't really sorry, and you pulled that card on me. That's why I believe you should always apologize when you're genuinely remorseful. Unfortunately, though, in the real world, that's not always going to happen if you're trying to keep a friendship intact in your 30s. So the general principle is to apologize only when you're remorseful. Don't be shamed into it. But let's say both of you guys are just pissed off at one another and you want this friendship. You have to see that in your 30s, it's way different than in your 20s, where in your 20s, you default back into friendship, where in your 30s, you default into bad blood. And if you're going to default into bad blood, it's smart a lot of times just to take the high road, to say, okay, my bad, bro. If someone's saying my bad, bro, to you, then you just got to be like, okay, man, thank you for apologizing. Let's keep it pushing. See, this is why guys are super simple. Guys apologizing to other guys, it's like, yo, my bad, bro. Done. And it could have been one of the worst betrayals out there, but if it's a genuine, yo, my bad, bro, a lot of guys will just forgive that. Where I heard with women, it's tricky to apologize to them because there's more nuances involved. Anyways, we're wrapping up the episode today. And if you enjoyed today's talk, remember, the first day of the month, I drop a new ArmaniTalks show. This show is always around 1 hour long. And throughout the week, I drop important clips from this show on my YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, be sure you subscribe. Go on ArmaniTalks, hit subscribe, hit bell notification. If you are Spanish, by the way, I'm actually working on Spanish ArmaniTalks, which is my videos dubbed in Spanish. I do know that a lot of the people who discovered the ArmaniTalks brand discover the translations within the past 2 years. I've been converting a lot of my manuscripts into Spanish. I got Habla Fácil, El Moderno Polímata. I believe that's how you say modern day polymath. And Level Up Mentality, I would try saying it, but it's something really long when you say it in Spanish. A lot of people have been discovering the ArmaniTalks brand through the Spanish content. So I thought, why not dub my videos Spanish as well? So if you are a Spanish speaking person, go ahead and subscribe to Spanish ArmaniTalks. If you like daily content on communication skills, the best place to follow me is the ArmaniTalks free daily newsletter. Within this newsletter, you will learn much more about public speaking, storytelling, emotional intelligence, and much more. Every single day at 7 p.m. EST, I drop a short story on how to level up your soft skills. thousands and thousands of people have subscribed from all around the planet. They get exclusive content that you don't get anywhere else. So you definitely want to subscribe to the Armani Talks free daily newsletter at armanitalks.com/newsletter. Every now and then I give out free products there. I give discounts. I offer free consultation services, a lot of perks that I don't offer anywhere else. Join the tribe by going on armanitalks.com/newsletter and sign up today. It is October 1st, 2024. Make this month a great month. We're about to wrap up 2024, so I will catch you in the beginning of next month. Thank you.